Okay, thank you everybody for joining us for part 3 of this leadership course that we're giving, learning from different great leaders of Jewish history and how we can make ourselves into better leaders. As we explain, better leaders means in any part of our daily lives, with our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, our country, our community, our synagogue, our spouses, our family. Right, leadership, having good leadership really helps you in all situations and in every scenario that one is in. Just like every other class, if one has a question, please feel free to write it in the chat during the class. Otherwise, we could take questions after the class is over. So to start off, the Kuzari was a book written, a sefer written Rabbi Yehuda Levi. He lived around the 1000, 1100, somewhere around there, and he wrote a fascinating book. And I've mentioned him in my classes before. And it's definitely a worthwhile learning, and it's written in a way that's easy because it's sort of a question and answer, but it's really deep, but really very practical at the same time. And he writes, the way he writes it is the Kuzari was a kingdom that spanned around the Baltic area, and he lived, the kingdom was around the year, I don't know, about 600 to 900, something like that. Now, if there was really a kingdom or not, that's not for our discussion right now. It's a fascinating topic. There's a debate in the historians and archaeologists if there was or not. But be it as is, he created the sefer based on a conversation that the king had with the chacham, with the rabbi, and it was sort of a question and answer and a question and answer. And the Kuzari asks him like this. He says, "Tell me, who is the upright and purest people of your religion behave? How, right? How do the upright and righteous people of your religion behave?" That was a question that he asked, right? And he answered, the Kuzari answered him like this, and I'm going to read it to you. An upright person is one who is concerned with his country. He provides all his citizens with their very provision and needs. He leads them justly, does not oppose any one of them, and does not give any one of them more than his rightful share. That's what he answered him. So the Kuzari asked, he said, "I asked you about an upright person, not a leader." Answers the rabbi, he says, an upright person is a leader. So before we move on, and this is a sort of a thread that we have going on in every class, we have to remember that we're always bringing through different scenarios proving that leadership is not for the few. Leadership is not for someone that's sitting on the dais. Leadership is not for someone that is, special and great. Leadership is every person can be a leader. And we started off with Avram saying the concept of feeling responsibility for other people. Spoke about Moshe, right? The concept of understanding every individual, right, and being able to be able to really get out of himself and not feel that he was greater than anybody else, being by the house of Pharaoh. And I don't want to go into the whole Moshe class again. And now we're going to bring this up by King David also. But the Kuzari, it's not only for King David, but he is talking about, we're going to see, it's going to connect to King David. But the Kuzari says something unbelievable. It says, an upright person is a leader. Someone that provides, right, for all his citizens, whoever that is, if it's his community, provides for his family, right, provides for his congregation, right, whoever he provides for, right, someone that leads them justly and does not oppress any one of them and does not give favor to any one of them. Everybody's equal. Everybody has to be treated equally. That is a leader, and an upright person is a leader. That's very important to remember, that leaders have to be upright, or better, an upright person, as the Kuzari put it, the rabbi put it, an upright person is automatically a leader. And that's how he put it. And that's very important to remember, right? That when we start thinking about leadership, right, we have to realize that automatically, right, when we consider ourselves upright, if we're leaders, we have to be upright people. Automatically, the two things are connected, right? And that's something very important to just remember as we start this class. Just for those that joined us, if there's any questions during any time of the class, please write it in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer. Otherwise, you can wait till the end of class to ask you questions. So now let's get into King David himself. What kind of leader was King David? So there's a very interesting, very fascinating, and this is such an important idea. And how important, how so, especially during our difficult times that we're living in. Everything we're talking about is so crucial and important. A good king needs to have the ability to see, right, the multifaceted qualities of each individual. A king, a leader, a king has to see the different qualities of each individual. Now, in the Hebrew language, we have two ways of calling rulers, two main words that we call a ruler. We have either a moshel, right, moshel bagayim, right, or we have melech, right, a king. A moshel is a dictator, right, and a melech is a king. So we have the word moshel. We have many times the concept of moshel being written, right, who moshel bagayim. He's a dictator over the goyim. Means to say God is the ultimate dictator, of course, right, in a good way. Right, but then there's also a melech, there's a king. We have all our kings were called melech. They weren't called moshel, they weren't called dictators, they were called kings. What's the difference between the two? The Ibn Ezra, guys, listen to this unbelievable interpretation and explanation, not interpretation, explanation. Says the Ibn Ezra something very powerful, right? Says the Ibn Ezra, right, that the difference is, right, and the Gaon of Vilna teaches us most of these ideas, right, that a dictator imposes himself above the ruler against others, right, where a king is accepted willingly by people. And a dictator, all the dictators, whenever we talk about dictators impose themselves on other people. They weren't accepted by the masses. They went ahead. There was a revolution. There was massacres. There was a genocide. Right, whatever it is, but they impose themselves on the rulers, right, on the people. Or after they got into power, they went ahead and they imposed themselves on the people. That is a dictator. A king is someone that needs to get inaugurated. Right, there's a whole idea of inaugurating a king, right, or queen, or someone getting knighted, right, because it has to come from the people. Now, you know, in old times, the people didn't have so much say, but when there was a void, right, a lot of times that's when people had an ability to really, if they had some influence, to really flex their muscles, who should be the next king. And there was civil wars sometimes, there was fights, who should be the next king. But a king has to come from the people. That is the difference between a moshel and a melech. And therefore, the Jewish leaders have always been called a melech, not a moshel. Because the Jewish kings have to come from the people. They have to appreciate and they have to understand each individual, and they have to realize that they are not above and my way or the highway. But a king, right, is someone, a leader is someone that understands that he has been chosen by the people, right, either by them asking him to be the king, or by just that he was picked, right? Or he was picked, right? Or there was a void and he took the power. But he's ruling like a king. He's ruling like a melech of understanding that he has to work with everybody. And that's who King David was. Right? King David was a melech. King David, the Talmud says something striking. The Talmud says, right, that Talmud in Tractates Brachos says that, tells us a little schedule of King David's day, right? And it talks about how he wakes up in the morning and this and that, and it goes on a couple of times about how he speaks to the Sanhedrin about this, and he speaks about to the head of the army about this, right? And he speaks to the prophet. He consults with everybody. He doesn't just say my way or the highway. He consults. He has discussions. He has a discussion. He consults. That is a king. That is a leader. Right, so Number one, right? A leader, number one, a leader, as we said, is an upright person. Upright person means to say that a person that doesn't, as the Kuzari said, right? He provides, right, for his citizens. He provides for his people. He provides for who he's looking after, right? And this is a thread that we've been talking about. A leader is someone that has the responsibility, right? Someone that is concerned about other people. That is a leader, right? Not someone that's just sort of above and decides to benefit from everybody else. But on the contrary, a true leader, right, is always concerned about other people, right? And now it's what the Kuzari said, and he worded it very nicely. If anybody wants a copy of it, I'll be more than happy to send it to them. Worded beautifully, right? But we're now taking a step further, right? We said there's a difference between a king and a moshel. Because we're talking about King David. King David was considered a king. Right? There's a difference between a melech and a moshel, a king and a dictator. A king is someone that is from the people and works with the people, right? Is accepted by the people. And a moshel, a dictator, is someone that imposes himself. So our leadership has to be from a king's perspective, coming with the people, working with the people, and not imposing himself, excuse me, on the people. So now let's take it a step further. Let's take it a step further. There's a beautiful idea. The Das on Bereshis, there's a commentary called the Das, right? He says something unbelievable. He says that when Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather, when he blessed all the 12 children, right? So at the end of his life, right, as we know in Parshas Vayechi, right, the whole episode, he called all his children to come, and I want to tell you the end of days. It didn't work out exactly as he thought. First his prophecy went away from him. Not going to the whole story. It's important to go ahead and learn about it, right? But he finally got his prophecy back, and he went and he gave every child, right, a blessing. He gave every child a blessing, and each child was compared to something else, right? Yosef was compared to an ox, and every child was compared to something else, right? So what's it called again? What was Yehuda, sorry, what was Yehuda compared to? Yehuda was compared to, listen to this, right? The tribe of Judah was compared to wine, but especially the kingship. That what we know that kingship will be by King David, right? The connection of knowing the kingship will be by King David is that what David, excuse me, I apologize. That's what Yaakov expressed that that Yehuda is compared to wine, right? Yaakov blessed him with a portion of the land of Israel that should be produced an incredible abundance of wine. He said, you will have an abundance of wine. And that is, we extrapolate from that, the wine is connected to a concept of kingship. So on the simple explanation, the commentaries say, because wine is considered chashuv. Wine is, we inaugurate everything with a cup of wine. We sanctify things with wine, right? Even in the secular world, right? Throughout history, right? Wine was considered how you toasted, how you celebrated, right? Wine is, so therefore, that refers to kingship also, because sort of that's how you celebrate. But listen to this unbelievable idea. I saw this beautiful concept that says like this, that the numerical value, right? We know every letter of the Jewish alphabet has a numerical value. So Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, right? Hey is 5, Chaf is 20, and Taf is 400. Right? Every letter has a numerical value. So what's the numerical value of Yayin, wine? The Hebrew word for wine is Yayin. So it's Yud, Yud, Nun, right? That is, Yud is 10, so that's 20, and Nun is 50, that is 70. Right? So the numerical value of Yayin is 70. You know what else is the numerical value of 70? What other word in Judaism is the numerical value of 70? The word sod. Right? Sod is a foundation, but sod also is a secret. It is the thing that's behind it. Sod has the two things are interconnected, but sod could be a yesod, the foundation, or sod could also be the secret. And how do you spell sod? Sod is samach, which is 60, vav, which is 6, and dalid, which is 4. What's 60 plus 6 plus 4? 70. So the numerical value of yayin, which is 70, and the numerical value of sod, the hidden component, right, is also 70. So there's a correlation in between yayin, wine, and sod. Now, we actually have this concept. King David, King Shlomo Melech said, right, nichnas yayin, yatsa sod. Right, when wine comes in, the secret comes out. Right, the King Shlomo Melech said this. Right, what does that mean? Right, meaning to say that that when we drink wine, we know that our deepest secrets sometimes come out, right? We have to be careful what we say. We have to know who we're around, right? Because wine has the ability to numb our senses a little bit, our control, right? So therefore, wine comes out, and that's why we drink wine on Purim, right? Because on Purim, it was nahapachu, it was sort of mixed up, that what seemed one way, but it wasn't the other way, and we're not talking about a Purim story right now, right? But for our discussion right now, right, what is the connection between yayin and sod and to kingship and to King David? Right, so listen to this unbelievable thing. Right, Maimonides says, when Maimonides describes a king, he says, hearts of the Jewish people. A king is the heart of the Jewish people. Right, so the idea is like this. Right, the idea is like this: a king, right, is the heart of the Jewish people. Right? Just like the heart pumps blood and life throughout the body, so too a king gives strength and life to every member of its nation. All right, to do this, he needs to be able to see the depth of each person and appreciate his unique beauty. All right, so remember, we told, how do we know King David was a king, right, and not a Moshe, and not a dictator? What is the characteristics of a king? We said a king is someone that works with the people. We find this character trait in kingdom in King David and Jacob, our forefather, right? Blessed the Judah and King David, the kingship, with that concept of yain, of wine. The idea is like this: that wine and sod and the secrets are intertwined. They're both the same numerical value. A king has to be able to find the secrets, not the secrets, the negative secrets, but on the contrary, unique beauty, the hidden beauty of each person. He has to appreciate each individual. He has to be able to find the talents of each individual. We'll talk about that soon again also. Right? That is the power of a king. Right? That is the power of a leader. Right? And that's what King David had. We'll show in a minute. Right? But that's the idea, right, of a melech, a king, and not a Moshe. A king is someone that works with the people. A king is someone in Judaism, right? A king is someone that is inaugurated with the people. And therefore, Jacob, our forefather, Yaakov Avinu, blessed the tribe of Judah with wine, because the numerical value of wine is 70, and the numerical value of sod, the hidden component of finding something, is 70. Because that's a job of a king. That's a job of a leader. Now, just to throw something out, and I have to double check my years, but I'm almost positive that King David lived 70 years. It's an interesting thing. I have to double check it. Don't quote me on it yet, right? But I'm almost positive that King David lived 70 years. All right, so just very fascinating, this connection again to 70, but not our discussion today. I want to bring out another idea that the commentaries bring out, and then we'll come back to this concept of finding the depth behind someone. What is another connection of yain to sod? Wine, right, to foundation. Right? How do you make wine? How do you make wine? I'm not a wine merchant, right? But I do know that if you have a grape, right, that's not wine. And the bracha for a grape, the blessing for a grape is Bar Priya Eitz. It's 7 species in the land of Israel. It's more special. But what do? You take the grape and you squeeze it, right? You find the best potential, right, of the person, of the grape, right? You go ahead and you squeeze it, and you get the juice out of it, and that makes wine. Now, yes, you have to ferment it, and you have to this, and you have to have a lot, and squeeze it in different ways. And remember hearing about the people that would put grapes in their bathtub and stamp on it, right, to make their own grape, right? Yes or no? I don't know. But one thing I do know, right, the way grape juice is made or wine, right, is made is by squeezing the grape and making the grape into something else, and realizing that the outer shell, right, is gonna go to waste, right? We try, maybe there's something to use it for, or we could go ahead and eat it, but really you're squeezing out the wine. My friends, that's so. That's connecting to the depth of someone. Wine is made, yain is made through finding the better part of the grape. Yes, I like grapes. Actually, I like grapes. I love eating grapes. And now grapes has become a great. We eat it. All right, there's a great market for eating. But it used to be, and even now, right, grapes are primarily for wine. So that is a job of a leader, is to find the wine in every individual, to find that deeper component of every individual. And that's on a deeper level. The connection between yain, yes, the numerical value are the same, but on a deeper level, the connection between yain, wine, and soda foundation are really intertwined. They're both the same thing. It's unbelievable. Now, I want to suggest one more idea, and then we'll move on, right, for this concept of sod, foundation, the secret, right, and yain. As I mentioned, sod also could be foundation, right? You sowed, right? You sowed foundation. Right? What's the connection? Well, the foundation usually is hidden, right? Just in Judaism, whenever words mean the same thing, Lashon HaKodesh, it's not like the English language, right? If there's one word means many things, there's a connection in between the things, right? There's a correlation in between them. So a foundation is usually not naked to the eye, right? The foundation is deep in the ground. Right? Sometimes it's many stories down. Right? I remember when I was in Israel, right? You could see construction very easy over there because they don't have all the safety laws that they have here. Right? And I remember walking by, and there was someone, they were making a 3-4 story building. Right? And you were able just to like look through the crack, right, of the fence. They had a fence, right? And there was a hole in the ground, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 feet down. And they were telling me they were laying down the foundation. They were laying cement down, and they were laying wood to make the foundation in a certain place. The foundation is not naked to the eye. So the sod, the hidden, and the foundation, right, are intertwined. Just on a side point, why those two things are intertwined. But what's the connection between the word sod of foundation to leadership? That it's easy. A leader has to be the foundation of every community, of every person that he's leading. He can't be the wishy-washy. He can't be the thing that moves around in the air. He has to be the sturdy. He has to be the strength. He has to be the backbone. He or she have to be the backbone of whatever he or she is a leader of. Their home, their community, their synagogue, their office, their friendships. Whatever it is, they have to be strong. They have to be strong. We'll see that also in King David. So let's move on. Where do we see in King David, right, the concept of that he recognized every person's potentials, and he was working with the people and not over the people. There's a beautiful story in Tanakh, in the book of Judah, right, that Shoftim, Judges, that goes ahead and describes, right, relates a story of the Talmud of Baba Basra relates this over. And it says like this. It says that the grandson of Moshe, whose name was Yehonasan, right, he unfortunately fell on bad times and he needed money. Right. Unfortunately, there's so many that we know that fall on hard time, and they don't really do the things that they realize they know is really the right thing to do. Right? And he went ahead and he became a priest for idol worshippers. Right? And it wasn't the thing that he really wanted to do, but what could he do? He needed money. We don't judge anybody. Right? To support himself. When King David later saw that money was very precious to Yehonasan, right? And it's very important the way it's worded, because there's a lot of people that fall on hard time, right? But they don't go ahead and steep to do things that they know is the wrong thing to do, right? So it's another important side lesson to learn what's really more important, what our values are, right? And what we consider important is what guides us and makes us do what we do or we don't do, right? So it says that King David noticed that money, right, was very precious to Jonathan. So what did he do? He didn't say, "Oh, you're a terrible person, Isvarf, right, terrible," and he didn't say that. What did he do? He did something unbelievable. He placed him in charge of the temple's treasury. Placed him in charge of the temple treasury. He gave him a job in the temple, in the right temple, right? Not idol worshiping, but in the Beis Hamikdash. He became in charge. Not the Beis Hamikdash; it wasn't around yet, right? But the tabernacles. The Talmud tells us what was the result. Yehonasan was subsequently referred to as Sho, because he returned El. Shav El. He was considered now Shav El because he returned to God with all his strength. Now, my friends, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. What did King David do? We see King David finding the depth of the person. What was really driving Yonasan? It wasn't because he wanted to serve idols. It wasn't because he didn't believe in God anymore. Right? So he had a drive for money, and he couldn't handle not being able to buy a slice of pizza every day, or being able to pay his electric bills, or borrowing money from people, however much he didn't have money, right? But money was a driving point for him. He noticed, he dug deep. He was a melech, right? He found what was really bothering him, and he took care of the problem. And once he took care of that problem, everything else fell into place. Now that he had money, his true desire was always to serve Hashem, always to do the right thing. But now that David HaMelech took care of the problem, now he returned. And most people wouldn't do that. Right? Most people, idol worshiping, terrible, right? Gewalt, terrible. But David looked far deeper. And he saw what was really bothering him. That is a melech. That is a leader. And guys, this is so striking, right? How much we have to think about this, right? How much we have to realize. And for those listening to the class, I apologize. I'm probably going to use this as a morning minute, so it'll be a good review, right? But this is such an important lesson to realize that David HaMelech looked past the external actions that were happening, and he dug deep and found out what was really causing it. What was the true cause? And he went and he fixed the cause. And therefore, the effect of that cause went away. If you would have tried to tackle the effect and say, "Oh, how can you do this and that?" It probably would have escalated much more. Probably, Yonasan probably would have dug his feet deeper, right? And he would have made a whole philosophy out of it, and this and that. But no, that was King David. He had eyes. He looked. That is a melech. That is a leader. Leader is someone, as we said, lesson number 1 of what it means, yayin, yesod, right? Of yesod means to say that the depth, the hidden. It's unbelievable to think about it, right? How many times we punish someone, we say something negative about someone, right? We think that we're disciplining someone, teachers, parents even, right? Congregants, friends, rabbis, and we might be making the situation much worse because we're not reading the situation properly. We try to say one thing and educate on one thing, but we're missing the cause. We're missing what's causing the person to do such a thing. It's something that we really have to think about. Something that we really have to reflect on. And I'm talking to myself. So many times we have to try to find the cause of what's really bothering that person. What's really causing them to act in such a way. Why are they acting up? And why are they talking negative about you or about other people? What's really causing all this? And that's something that we really have to reflect on. Something very important. So that's one idea. That's one idea. Now let's move on. Before King David was a king, right? There's a very famous story of Goliath, right? When the Plishtim, right, were fighting against the Jewish people, and Shaul HaMelech was the king, right? And King David was a youngster in King Shaul's army, right? They actually held his armor, right? And Shaul HaMelech was looking for someone to go ahead and fight Goliath because he wasn't able to. They couldn't beat him. Right? He was almost a giant. He was very strong. Right? And it's a fascinating story in Tanakh, right? In Shmuel, regarding this episode. So it says like this, right? David HaMelech said, right? David said, "Let me go fight him. I want to fight him." So I'm going to read you the episode in Shmuel, right? It's Shmuel Aleph, chapter 17, 33 to 37, and I'm going to read it to you in English. King Shaul said to him like this. He said, "You cannot go to fight against this Philistine, for you are but a youngster, while he is a man of war from his youth, and you're a youngster." So what did David HaMelech said? David was, "Oh, okay, forget it." What did David HaMelech say? And David said to Shaul, "Your servant was a shepherd for his father. When a lion or a bear came and carried off the sheep from the flock, I went out after it and struck it and saved the sheep from its mouth. Your servant has killed both a lion and a bear, and this Philistine shall also be like one of them." And then continues the pasuk, and David HaMelech said to them, and David said, "God who saved me from the lions and the bears will save me from this Philistine." So a lot to talk about this story, right? David HaMelech fighting lions and bears. Wow. Okay. But I heard this unbelievable question, and I heard it from Reuven Lechter, right? Someone I learned from in Israel, right? He shall live and be well. He's still alive. A great rabbi in Israel from one of the programs that I was doing in Israel. He gave classes there, and he said something unbelievable. He asked, "What's going on over here? Well, how did David HaMelech finish off, my friends? What did he finish off? He said, right? And God who saved me from the lion and the bear shall save me from this Philistine." Isn't that the best line ever? I have faith in God. I have faith in God. God shall save me. You could have just started off and told Shaul HaMelech, "Wait, what do you mean? I believe in God and God will save me. So I'm not worried. I'm not scared." As for Reuven Lechter, why did David HaMelech have to give a whole introduction? You had to go give a whole introduction. And I was a shepherd for my father. And when the lion or the bear came and took the sheep, I went and I fought it. And I was able to rescue the sheep. And I brought back the sheep to my father. Oh, the same way I was able to kill the lion and the bear, I'll be able to kill this Philistine. And then, and God will help me. What's going on over here? As a real Lechter, he should have started off with that. God, you want to know? I believe that God will save me. The same God that let me win over the lion and the bear will let me win over this Philistine. Or just God will let me win over the Philistine. Why do you need this whole introduction? Says Reuven Lechter, and this is what we're talking about beforehand, right? Said Reuven Lechter that before David could even begin to think about going to war against this giant, he needs to be aware of his own personal experiences, his own capabilities. He had to look within himself and say, what have I accomplished, what I have not accomplished, right? Or standing up to someone, right, or something more powerful than himself. Once he was able to point an experience, he was able to build up to build it up and place his trust in God, that he would help him accomplish even more incredible feats. So we look at something very powerful. That you can believe in God from today till tomorrow, right? But if you don't believe in yourself, then you believe in God 90% of the time. It's just a way of you trying to comfort yourself. Guys, this is something very important. You have to know your abilities. We can't rely on miracles. Yes, great people, right? They walked into, the lion's den, Daniel and the lion, right? They walked into fire, right? They had no choice. They said, God, please save us, right? And great people, right? They don't know if they were able to survive or not, but they went ahead and they believed in God. And King David, of course, was great. But when you have the thought that, hey, should I volunteer? He wasn't put in front of him. He wanted to know, should I volunteer? Do I have the ability to go ahead? I can't rely on just a miracle. Can't just go ahead and put ourselves in danger and rely on miracles. He had to reflect and say, hey, did I have something happen to me? Did I have the experience of being able to do this? He looked inside himself for his own foundation. He had to build his own foundation up. He had to be strong within himself. He had to find what he was able, his capabilities. And then afterwards he said, oh, look, I accomplished things. Yeah, this is a greater feat than lions and bears. But I have accomplished things. I have went and fought and was successful and won. So now the God that saved me from those, it gave me the strength to overcome those challenges, will give me the strength to overcome this challenge. That's a tremendous lesson in leadership. And it's a tremendous lesson for all of us. Leaders are not invincible. It's important to remember, leaders are not invincible. They can't just do anything. They can't accomplish everything. Of course, God wants it to happen, it will happen. But leaders are not, they have to rely on their own experience. If you don't know something, admit it. It's not a lack in your leadership. If you're not an expert in that, if you're not able to do that, it's not a lack of your leadership. It's not a lack of your manlyhood. It's not a lack of your friendship if you can't help the person. On the contrary, it shows strength and resolve to say, hey, I can't do this. I'm sorry, we need to get help from someone else. A leader has to look inside of himself and find that inner strength, but from what his inner strength of what he's able to do and be strong. You sowed foundation. He has to have that foundation. It takes time to build up that foundation. We have to build it up. We have to learn new things. We have to learn Torah. We have to know, we have the ability to answer questions. We have the ability to have the insight of how to see things properly. Good eyesight, not 20/20, but being able to understand people, like we spoke about before. But you have to know what you know and what you don't know. You can't just pretend and whatever, and make it up and jump into the fire. You have to have your foundation. You have to have your soul. And that is the two lessons that we learn from the word yesod compared to wine, which wine represents kingship, as we spoke about, right? And connecting to King David. And tremendous lessons to learn about leadership, about things that we have to reflect on and to think about. I want to suggest one more idea, right? And then we'll end with this. That was one answer of why King David gave these explanations, right? And then he went ahead and spoke to God for his own personal internal strength and to know if he's capable, if he's not capable. I want to suggest one more answer, and I haven't seen this written anywhere. I'm sure it's written somewhere, right? But it's a thought that came to me. And when I was learning this topic over again, right, to speak over what Reuben Lochte said, and I believe that another very important character trait of a leader, well, David HaMelech was showing, even when he was a nar, even when he was a youngster, that you have to make other people believe in you too. Other people, the people that you're leading, have to know, and they have to believe in you. To be a leader, you have to be able to lead people. David HaMelech couldn't tell Shaul, oh, God will help me. Shaul would have thrown him out. Right? Okay, every person that comes in here will say, God will help me. Of course, if God wants us to win the war, right, Gaulis Ilus drop dead. Right? Of course, God could do miracles. But God's not helping us right now. He sent a couple of people. So thank you very much saying God will help you. David HaMelech knows himself that he has the ability. David HaMelech knows himself that he won over the line of this and that. But David HaMelech had to let Shaul know that he had the ability. Because a leader is someone, it's not haughtiness, and it's not gaiva, and it's not being full of yourself. But a good leader, in a respectful way, in a modest way, has to let the people that he's leading know that he has the ability to lead them in whatever he's leading them. And therefore, you have to flex your muscles sometimes. You have to open yourself up and say, hey, I studied the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. I've studied, whatever it is that's dealing with. I've had the life experience. And that's why people look for experience. And the question is, how does someone ever get experience? And okay, so you have to start off somewhere slowly, because the people that are being led want to know that the leader is capable. God will help. You know the story with God will help. And the story with God will help, right? I've said this many times, and I'm not the only one. Right? A guy is meeting his son-in-law, right, before they get married to his daughter, and he's having a discussion, the father-in-law discussion of, okay, so what are you going to do with your life? How are you going to provide for my family? Right? So he asked him, so he said, how do you think? Mr. will help. God will help. So how are you going to, pay rent? Mr. will help. How are you going to, X, Y, Z? Mr. will help. God will help. God will help. So after the whole discussion, the wife asked her husband, she said, how did it go? What did our future son-in-law said? He said, I love the guy. So why? Well, he thinks I'm God. David said, God will help me. Yeah, whatever. He has no plan. And he didn't convince the father-in-law. Basically, the father-in-law understood that he wants his help, right? And that the father-in-law will help him out for the first couple of years and to get him onto his feet. Saying God will help, right, to other people sometimes means nothing if you can't back it up with what people believe, that you have the ability to say God will help, or whatever it is that the leadership is. And therefore, I believe another idea, right, of what David HaMelech is teaching us, right? Reuven Lochler was speaking about internally for David to know for himself, right, to be able to first take the step. And then you sow the foundation to know that you have that foundation to take that step. And of course, every leader needs that. And 100%, I'm not saying different. But I'm saying another insight. There's many things that we can learn from the same thing. I'm saying another insight. I'm saying that what else does it mean? What else can we learn? That when you are leading other people, it's not it's not humble by not expressing what your abilities are. You have to let the people that you're leading, if it's your children, if it's as a teacher, as community members, synagogues, whatever it is, you have to be able to have the broad shoulders, that people feel comfortable, that people feel like you are leading them. And you can't be sheepish, yeah, whatever. You have to have a broad shoulders, you have to have strong strength. And that doesn't mean to say you're not humble. On the contrary, you can be the greatest humble person. And all good leaders are humble. And I don't want to get the whole discussion of what's humble and arrogance. But that is an important thing that we have to remember. That being a leader is also making sure that other people are willing to follow you, that they believe in you. Because you can be the greatest person in the world. You could be the righteous person and have the greatest insights. But if people don't have the confidence to follow you, to listen to you, you're not a leader. You're an individual. You're an individual. And that's why I believe another idea of leadership that David HaMelech went ahead and told Shaul, I have the ability, I have the strength, and of course I rely on God, but I have the strength, and you should trust me and believe in me because I have the ability to do this. And I'll prove it to you. Because X, Y, and Z, I killed a bear and a lion. It's another beautiful insight into leadership and something very important that unfortunately sometimes people think that they have to be humble and to this and I can't show. It's not showing off. So let's regroup. We started off with a very famous, beautiful idea from the Kuzari. And the Kuzari said that an upright person is a leader. What's an upright person? Right, someone that's concerned about his country, about his people, provides to all the citizens, right, and their provision and needs, right. Doesn't mean to say that he enables them, as we spoke about, right, beforehand. Right, the other day we spoke about that leadership is not enabling people, right. Leadership is by helping them find their potential, right. We spoke about that by Moshe, right, but helps them with their needs. He leads them with justice. Does not oppress one over the other, does not give favoritism to another person. That is an upright person, and that is a leader. And the Kuzari said, you know, I asked you for, he said, yeah, every upright person could be a leader, right? So that's the first thing we spoke about. The next thing we spoke about is the idea of a difference between a moshel and a melech. A moshel is an oppressor, is a dictator, someone that rules from above, doesn't care about other people. A melech in Judaism represents someone that leads from the people, with the people. And we gave an example of what that means, right? Ruling with the people is recognizing people, helping people out, right? Recognizing their strength. And we said that that's why Yaakov Avinu blessed Judah with wine, because the numerical value of wine is 70. Numerical value of sod, foundation, is 70, right? And the wine is actually the sod, the hidden component, right, of grapes, right? And that's, a leader has to be able to find the greatness of each person, and also we said means to say find the difficulties of what's struggling the person to be able to fix the problem, and not just try to fix the external effect of the cause, right? But we have to work on the cause, and that sometimes takes digging. And that's what we said, that's what it means, right? By one of the ideas of sod, the hidden component compared to wine. We gave the story in the Tanakh with Yeshua, Yonasan, the grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Who went and started being a priest for idols. David HaMelech realized because of his money, he fixed the cause, right? And the problem went away, and he was now called, right, Shuel, who returned to God. Shav El, returned to God, right? And we spoke about this idea of finding the cause and looking deeper behind the person, right? And that's a foundation. The hidden component compared to wine. That's a very important character trait of a leader. The next thing we spoke about was two other ideas based off the story of one. Shaul was looking for someone to kill Goliath, to Plishtim. David HaMelech volunteered, and he gave a whole long drasha of, I killed the bear and the lion and all that. And then he goes and says, and God saved me. We asked, why did he just go ahead and say right away, God saved him? And we gave two answers, one from Reuven Luchter, that he has to know himself, his own personal strength. He has to know where he's coming from. He can't just jump into things, right? And we said that's the component of the sod of foundation, right? Wine is compared to sod, also foundation, right? And that a person has to have his own foundation, his own strength. A leader has to can't just jump into something, but he has to know if he can do it or not. He has to be honest with himself. He can't do it. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the knowledge, right? He doesn't have the physical strength to do it. Be honest with yourself and get help, right? Help from someone else. A true leader is honest with themselves and doesn't just say, oh, God will help. The other answer we gave was that a suggestion that I gave, right? I'm sure someone else says it, right? But that David HaMelech was also, he knew the strength of himself, right? He knew he could do it. But a leader also has to make sure that other people know that they can do it. You can't just say, oh, God will help, right? Things will take care of. No, the congregation, your children, right? Your students, right? Your community, whoever it is that you're leading, they have to feel confident in you that you can help them out. They have to feel confident in you that you are the leader, right? That you have the strength, you have the broad shoulders, you have the knowledge, you have the ability. and you have it, but you have to let them know that you have it. You can't just be sheepish and hide. That's not arrogance, and that's not being full of yourself. If it's done in a healthy and respectful way, like David Malach said, I was a shepherd. My father happened to work out in the scenario of what had happened. He expresses that he had the strength and the ability, and now he said, "Oh, God will help," because that's a leader. A leader has to make sure that the people that he's leading want to follow him and have the trust that this leader will be able to help them out. And these are just some things that we learned from David HaMelech, right, regarding leadership. God willing, next week we'll talk about Miriam and probably a little Esther, of their leadership and things that we can learn on. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I will now